There is a quiet power in a person who no longer feels the need to raise their voice to be heard, who no longer burns their energy trying to prove their worth to a world that has already made up its mind. You see, not every misunderstanding is meant to be corrected, not every accusation deserves a response, and not every opinion holds the weight of truth. There comes a moment in life, soft yet transformative, when you realize that arguing does not elevate you, defending does not define you, and explaining does not always free you. In that moment, you begin to rise, not by speaking louder, but by choosing silence with intention, by standing firm in who you are without seeking permission or validation. And that, dear listener, is where your true power begins. There is a strange expectation placed upon us, as if we must answer every accusation, respond to every misunderstanding, and stand ready to defend every inch of who we are. But life, in its quiet wisdom, teaches something different. It teaches that not every voice deserves your reply, and not every challenge deserves your presence. Some battles arrive not to reveal your strength, but to exhaust it. They come dressed as opportunities to prove yourself, yet beneath that disguise, they carry only distraction, only noise, only the slow erosion of your peace. You begin to notice it in the way certain conversations leave you feeling smaller, not stronger. In the way some people are not listening to understand you, but waiting for their turn to speak over you. There are arguments that do not seek truth, they seek victory. And in those spaces, no matter how carefully you choose your words, no matter how calmly you present your heart, you will find that understanding was never the destination. It was never about clarity. It was about control. And so you learn to pause, not out of weakness, but out of awareness. You learn that your energy is not an endless well, and where you pour it matters. You begin to recognize that every moment spent trying to convince someone who has already decided not to see you is a moment taken away from building a life that reflects your truth. There is a quiet dignity in stepping back, in choosing not to engage, in allowing silence to say what words no longer can. Walking away is not surrender, it is selection. It is the gentle, powerful act of choosing yourself over chaos, of choosing peace over pride, because not every battle is meant to be won, some are meant to be left behind, and the wisdom lies in knowing the difference. The strongest person in the room is not always the one who speaks the loudest, but the one who knows when to remain still, when to let the storm pass without becoming a part of it. There will be those who misunderstand your silence. They may call it avoidance or assume you have nothing to say. Let them. For your life is not a courtroom and you are not on trial. You do not owe the world constant explanations or endless defenses. Your truth does not become less real simply because someone refuses to accept it. And as you continue forward, lighter and more certain, you will come to understand that peace is not found in winning arguments, but in refusing the ones that cost you too much. You will see that your breath, your voice, your presence, these are sacred things, and not every battle deserves them. There is a subtle trap hidden inside the need to explain yourself, a quiet pull that convinces you that if you just say it better, if you just add one more detail, one more reason, one more truth, then finally you will be understood. But the hard lesson life teaches is this: the wrong people do not misunderstand you by accident. They misunderstand you by choice. And every explanation you offer them becomes another thread they can pull apart, another chance for them to twist your truth into something unrecognizable. You start with honesty, with clarity, with the pure intention of being seen. Yet somehow, the more you speak, the more the ground beneath you begins to shift. Your words are no longer bridges. They become battlegrounds. They question your tone, your timing, your intention. They dissect your story as if it were something to be proven or disproven. And before you realize it, you are no longer expressing who you are. You are defending why you deserve to be accepted at all. There is an exhaustion that comes from constantly explaining yourself, a quiet draining of the spirit. Because when someone is committed to doubting you, no amount of explanation will ever feel like enough. You could offer them your clearest truth, your most vulnerable honesty, and still they will ask for more, not because they seek understanding, but because they are comfortable in their disbelief. And in trying to satisfy them, you begin to lose your center, slowly shaping your voice to fit ears that were never open to begin with. So you learn, not all at once, but in moments, moments where you stop mid-sentence, where you feel the weight of your own words and realize they are falling into a space that cannot hold them. You begin to understand that your truth is not something that needs constant justification. It exists whether it is accepted or not. It stands whether it is applauded or questioned. And there is a quiet strength in allowing it to stand on its own without dressing it in endless explanations. Choosing not to explain yourself is not arrogance. It is self-respect. It is the recognition that your worth is not something to be negotiated through conversation. The people who are meant to understand you will not require a performance. They will not need you to shrink your story into something more comfortable, more digestible, more acceptable. They will meet you where you are, not where they demand you to be. And as you begin to hold your silence with confidence, something shifts within you. You stop chasing validation and start protecting your truth. You stop overextending your voice into spaces that do not honor it. You realize that every unnecessary explanation is a quiet surrender of your power, and every boundary you set is a quiet reclaiming of it. In the end, you come to see that not every question deserves your answer, and not every doubt deserves your attention. Some things are better left unspoken, not because you have nothing to say, but because you finally understand that your truth does not need to be proven to be real. There comes a point in life when you begin to realize that your energy is not something ordinary. It is not endless, and it is certainly not something to be handed out carelessly to every situation, every opinion, every passing conflict. It is sacred. It is the quiet force behind your thoughts, your peace, your purpose. And yet, for so long, you may have given it away without hesitation, into arguments that led nowhere, into conversations that drained more than they gave, into people who only knew how to take, but never how to understand. You feel it afterward, don't you? That heaviness that lingers long after the words have ended. That restless echo of a moment you wish you had simply walked away from. Because some conflicts do not just pass through your life, they settle within you. They disturb your calm, interrupt your clarity, and pull you away from the things that truly matter. And the cost is always greater than it seems in the moment. Protecting your energy is not about becoming distant or unkind. It is about becoming discerning. It is about recognizing the difference between what deserves your presence and what only demands your reaction. Not everything that calls you deserves an answer. Not everything that provokes you deserves your attention. There's a deep wisdom in learning to pause and ask yourself, is this worth my peace? And more often than not, the answer will guide you away. Because peace is not something you stumble upon by accident. It is something you choose again and again in the face of chaos. It is choosing silence when your pride begs you to speak. It is choosing distance when your emotions urge you to engage. It is understanding that just because you can respond does not mean you should. And in that restraint there is power. Quiet, steady, unshakable power. There will always be noise around you. Opinions, judgments, misunderstandings, they are part of the world you live in, but they do not have to become a part of you. You are allowed to let them pass by without inviting them in. You are allowed to protect your inner space as if it were something valuable, because it is. Every moment of peace you preserve is a moment you invest back into your growth, your clarity, your well-being. And the truth is, not everyone will understand this version of you. Some may expect the old reactions, the old patterns, the old access to your time and energy. But growth often looks like distance to those who benefited from your lack of boundaries. Let them misunderstand. Your responsibility is not to meet their expectations. It is to honor your own well-being. So you begin to move differently. You listen more than you respond. You observe more than you react. You choose carefully where your energy flows because you finally understand its value. And in doing so, you create a life that feels lighter, calmer, more aligned with who you truly are. Because in the end, your peace is not just important, it is priceless. And anything that threatens it without purpose is simply too expensive to keep. People hear what they want to hear, and this is one of the most difficult truths to accept. No matter how clear you are, no matter how carefully you choose your words, some people will interpret your voice through the lens of their own assumptions, their own fears, their own prejudices. Your truth becomes a mirror reflecting not who you are, but who they are. They are listening, but they are not hearing. They are present, but they are not understanding. And this is not your failure, it is theirs. It is not your burden to carry their unwillingness to see beyond themselves. You might try at first to bridge the gap. You might repeat yourself, clarify, soften your tone, or provide examples to illuminate your point. You might even convince yourself that if you just explain one more time, they will finally see. But the more you invest in changing someone who is not ready to change, the more you drain the energy meant for your own life. You begin to notice the futility. Their ears are open, but their hearts remain closed, and no amount of reasoning can pry open a mind that is committed to misunderstanding. There is a painful beauty in realizing that your words, no matter how carefully chosen, cannot control the way they are received. Some will twist them, some will ignore them, and some will hear only what confirms the story they have already decided to believe. And yet, you continue. You continue not by forcing them to understand, but by freeing yourself from the expectation that they should. You learn that your voice exists not to change every mind, but to honor your own truth. Your words are for you, first and foremost. They are the vessels of your integrity, your clarity, your presence. When you accept this, a quiet liberation follows. You stop over-explaining. You stop defending what is inherently yours. You stop offering pieces of yourself to those unwilling to receive them fully. There is an elegance in this restraint, a power in choosing not to expend your energy on what cannot be transformed. It is not bitterness, it is wisdom. It is understanding that some lessons are for others to learn in their own time, and some truths are for you to live without apology. And as you move through life with this awareness, you begin to notice a profound shift. The conversations that matter become clearer. The relationships that are genuine rise to the surface. You no longer feel the compulsion to justify your every thought, to correct every misinterpretation, to explain every action. Instead, you focus on living in alignment with your own values, speaking when it matters, acting with intention, and allowing silence to carry the weight that words cannot. Ultimately, you realize that the need to be understood is not the measure of your worth. Your worth is inherent, untouched by the misunderstandings of others. Their refusal or inability to hear does not diminish you. And in this truth, you find freedom, confidence, and peace, the unshakable certainty that your life belongs to you, that your voice is sacred, and that you do not need permission or recognition to honor it. There is a deep, quiet truth in the realization that people hear what they want to hear. You can speak your heart with the clearest words, with the gentlest tone, with all the care in the world, and yet they will still interpret it in a way that suits them, not you. Their understanding is filtered through their own experiences, biases, and expectations. It is not a reflection of your clarity or your intention. It is a reflection of them, and it can be painful because you long for connection, for recognition, for understanding, only to discover that some minds are closed before you even begin to speak. At first, you may find yourself trying harder. You may repeat your words, frame them differently, soften them, or explain them more fully. You may think that with enough patience, enough reasoning, enough care, someone will finally see the truth you carry. But the harder you try, the more you risk losing yourself in the effort. You begin to shape your voice not to express your truth, but to fit into the expectations of others. And in that process, you may forget that your primary duty is to honor yourself, not to win approval from someone else. The truth is that some people are not listening to understand, they are listening to confirm their own story. Their minds are already made up, and no amount of explanation will ever change that. You can offer evidence, passion, logic, or vulnerability, but they will hear only what aligns with the narrative they have already chosen. And this is not a failure on your part. It is not a sign that your truth is flawed or that your voice is weak. It is simply the reality of human perception. Some hearts are closed, and some ears are tuned only to judgment. Learning this truth is a liberation, even though it comes with discomfort. You no longer feel compelled to justify yourself at every turn. You no longer expend your energy trying to make everyone understand. You begin to conserve your words, your breath, your time, and your spirit. You learn to speak when it matters, to invest your energy where it is received, and to release the burden of those who cannot hear. There is an elegance in this restraint, a quiet power in choosing when and to whom you give yourself. You will notice that as you stop forcing understanding, your life changes. The relationships that are genuine rise to the surface, and those that are not simply fall away. You will recognize the freedom in walking away from arguments that do not serve you, from explanations that are unnecessary, from defenses that are meaningless. You will understand that peace is more valuable than approval, and clarity more precious than agreement. And finally, you come to see that your truth exists independently of others' understanding. It does not require validation or recognition. Their unwillingness to hear does not diminish it. Their assumptions, biases, and judgments do not define it. You are free to live fully in your own truth, confident in the knowledge that some things are not meant to be explained, they are meant to be lived. And in living them, silently, fully, powerfully, you teach more than any argument ever could. There is a quiet strength in remaining calm when the world around you is frenzied. The impulse to react, to defend, to argue, to explain is natural, almost instinctual. But true power is not in the immediate response. True power is in the space between the stimulus and the reaction, in the pause where you choose not to be consumed by chaos. When others are shouting, pointing fingers, or trying to provoke you, calmness becomes your armor. It is a shield, not of aggression, but of steady, unshakable presence. People will try to push you, to test your limits, to pull you into their storms. They may seek to provoke you with their words, their actions, or their judgments. Yet in choosing calmness, you deny them control over your inner world. You refuse to be tossed by the tides of their anger or misunderstanding. You stand still, anchored in your truth, observing without being swayed, listening without being manipulated. In that stillness, there is clarity, and in that clarity there is power. Calmness is not passivity, nor is it surrender. It is an active decision to rise above the turbulence that surrounds you. It is a recognition that reacting to every irritation or provocation only feeds the chaos. The world may be loud, unfair, or irrational, but you do not have to meet it on its terms. You respond with intentionality, not impulse. You act when action is needed, and you remain silent when silence serves your purpose. This measured approach allows you to navigate life with dignity, preserving your energy for what truly matters. The power of calmness is subtle, yet profound. Others may misinterpret it at first. They may see your silence as weakness, your restraint as hesitation. Let them. Their misinterpretation does not diminish your strength. In fact, your calmness often unsettles those who thrive on conflict. When they expect a reaction and you offer none, they are faced with a reality they cannot control. You are not their puppet, and your peace is beyond their reach. Over time, calmness becomes more than a strategy. It becomes a way of life. It teaches you patience, self-control, and perspective. You learn to differentiate between what deserves your attention and what does not. You begin to understand that not every insult, not every slight, not every misunderstanding requires a response. Some things are better left unchallenged simply because your energy is too valuable to waste. By refusing to react, you protect yourself from unnecessary conflict and preserve the serenity that fuels your growth. And in this calmness, you discover a new kind of influence. People begin to notice your steadiness, your unwavering presence amidst the storms of life. They recognize the quiet authority in your restraint, the power that comes not from volume or aggression, but from composure and confidence. Your calmness speaks volumes. It tells the world that you are in control, that you are unshaken, that you are master of your own mind. In refusing to react, you rise above chaos and confusion, and in doing so, you become unmovable, respected, and undeniably powerful. There is a profound truth in the idea that actions speak louder than words. Words are easy. Anyone can craft a sentence, deliver an explanation, or offer a defense. But actions, they require consistency, courage, and a depth of character that cannot be faked. A life lived with integrity, with purpose, and with intention communicates far more than endless arguments or defenses ever could. People notice what you do long before they understand what you say, and often they trust what they see more than what they hear. Too often, we feel compelled to explain ourselves, to justify our choices, to defend our actions. We believe that our intentions must be understood, that our reasons must be accepted, and that our truth must be validated by others. But no amount of words can replace the quiet power of living authentically. When you focus on your deeds instead of your defenses, you create a life that speaks for itself. You stop convincing others of your worth because your worth becomes evident through everything you do. Actions carry a weight that words cannot. A kind gesture, a steady presence, a commitment to your principles. These speak volumes in ways explanations never could. Someone who lives with dignity does not need to argue. Their life is the argument. Someone who chooses honesty, patience, and courage in the face of adversity does not need to defend themselves. Their consistency is their defense. And someone who respects themselves enough to move gracefully through life without succumbing to trivial conflicts demonstrates a truth far deeper than language ever could convey. There is freedom in this approach. When you rely on action rather than defense, you free yourself from the endless cycle of misunderstanding and judgment. You no longer waste energy on trying to prove your value or convince others of your intentions. Instead, you channel that energy into creating, growing, and living fully. Each choice becomes a statement, each moment an example of who you are and what you stand for. Over time, the sum of your actions becomes a story that no words can accurately capture, yet everyone can recognize. A life lived in this way commands respect without demanding it. People begin to notice the consistency, the integrity, and the grace behind your choices. They see that you do not need to justify yourself because your life already justifies itself. There is a subtle authority in this, a quiet confidence that is impossible to dispute. Actions, after all, are not dependent on someone else's perception. They exist independently, visible to all who care to see, and undeniable in their impact. Ultimately, this is the lesson. Defending yourself is temporary, but a life well lived is lasting. Words can be ignored, twisted, or dismissed, but your deeds leave a mark that endures. The love you show, the courage you demonstrate, the consistency of your character, these speak to the world in ways that explanations never could. And in living this truth, you teach others not through argument, but through example, proving that the greatest influence is never in your words, but in the life you lead. There is a quiet strength in recognizing that you do not owe everyone access to your story. Not every ear deserves to hear the chapters of your life. Not every heart is ready to hold the weight of your experiences. and not every mind is capable of understanding the depth of who you are. For too long, we are conditioned to believe that our lives must be explained, our choices justified, and our truths shared. We are taught that silence is a form of guilt, and that withholding information is somehow a slight. But there is a power in choosing carefully where you place your words and to whom you grant entry into the most intimate corners of your life. Your story is sacred. It carries your lessons, your wounds, your victories, and your truths. It is not a tool for validation, nor a means for approval. It belongs to you first and you alone. Sharing it indiscriminately is not generosity. It is surrender, and surrender in the wrong hands is often misunderstood, exploited, or diminished. Those who rush to dissect your history or judge your journey are not worthy of the intimacy of your story. Some people will never understand the reasons behind your choices, no matter how clearly you explain them, and trying to force them into understanding only drains your spirit. There is a freedom in holding your narrative close. You learn that silence does not mean absence, and privacy does not mean secrecy. It is a declaration of self-respect, a boundary set with elegance and clarity. You begin to see that some people are meant to walk alongside you in the present, but not meant to peer into the past. Others are meant to witness your growth without questioning the steps it took to get there. And some are simply observers passing through your life, never to understand the full scope of your journey, and that is perfectly acceptable. Choosing silence is not avoidance. It is intentionality. It is the conscious decision to protect your energy, to guard your heart, and to preserve the integrity of your experiences. Every detail you withhold is not a denial of truth. It is a recognition of value. By sharing your story selectively, you surround yourself with people who appreciate it, who honor it, and who respect you. Your life becomes a space of meaning, where each revelation is a gift and not an obligation. Over time, this practice transforms the way you move through the world. You are no longer eager to explain, no longer anxious to justify, and no longer pressured to defend your choices. You begin to understand that your presence, your actions, and your character communicate far more than any story ever could. People who are meant to understand you will see the truth in your life without needing every detail spelled out. And those who are not meant to understand will simply fade into the background, leaving you free to live unburdened by expectation or judgment. Ultimately, the realization that you do not owe everyone access to your story is a lesson in self-worth. It is a lesson in sovereignty over your own life. It teaches you that you can exist fully, authentically, and unapologetically without seeking permission or validation. Your story is yours to tell, yours to protect, and yours to share only when it serves your peace, your purpose, and your truth. In holding this boundary, you claim your freedom and assert the dignity that belongs to no one else but you. There is a quiet courage in walking away, a courage that does not announce itself with drama or spectacle, but moves steadily, confidently, and without apology. To walk away is not an act of defeat, but an act of clarity. It is the recognition that your energy, your time, and your heart are too valuable to be spent in places where they are neither respected nor appreciated. Many confuse leaving with failure, but the strongest people are those who understand that sometimes the greatest power lies not in staying, arguing, or defending, but in stepping forward and choosing themselves above all else. Walking away requires self-knowledge. It requires knowing who you are, what you stand for, and what you will no longer tolerate. It is not impulsive, it is intentional. You look at the situation before you, at the people around you, and you ask yourself a simple but profound question. Is this worth my life, my peace, my growth? And when the answer is no, you do not argue, you do not plead, you do not explain, you simply step away with grace, with dignity, and with the quiet confidence of someone who knows their worth. There will always be voices that try to pull you back, that challenge your decision, that suggest that walking away is weakness. They do not see the strength it takes to release attachment, to refuse to fight a battle that will only drain you, to remove yourself from a situation that does not serve your higher good. But those voices are not your measure. Your worth is not defined by who tries to keep you, but by the value you place on yourself. Walking away is an act of love for yourself, for your future, and for the life you are meant to create. When you choose yourself in this way, something shifts within you. You begin to understand that peace is far more precious than recognition, that freedom is far more important than approval, and that integrity is more powerful than agreement. You are no longer bound by the need to convince, to justify, or to remain in spaces that diminish you. Instead, you carry yourself with quiet authority, guided by your principles, protected by your boundaries, and strengthened by the knowledge that your presence is a gift to the world, but only when it is honored. Walking away is not the end of a story. It is the beginning of a new chapter. You create space for possibilities that align with your values, for relationships that respect your boundaries, and for opportunities that nurture your growth. Every step taken away from what does not serve you is a step toward a life of purpose, clarity, and fulfillment. And in this journey, you discover a profound truth. The strongest people are not those who argue or fight for recognition, but those who rise above the chaos, choose themselves, and move forward with unwavering confidence. There is freedom in this choice. There is dignity in this choice. There is power in choosing yourself over the need to please, over the fear of judgment, over the desire to be understood. And as you walk away, you leave behind not bitterness, but clarity. You leave behind not resentment, but strength. You leave behind not defeat, but a quiet, unshakable proof that you know your worth, that you honor it, and that you will never compromise it again.